Hi everyone, my name is Miss Erin and I'm a librarian here at St. Mary's County Library. Welcome to part 2 of our cooking series, Nutrition Nuggets. And today is Breakfast of Champions. So today what we're going to work with is, I guess if you joined us last time, the recipes were a little bit more complex. But if you're like me, when you wake up in the morning, your brain might be functioning a little bit slower. So we've gone ahead and made these recipes a little less complex so they're easy to do early in the morning. All right, to start with, I'm sure most of you have heard that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and maybe you don't even know why. So today we're going to talk about why. So when you get up in the morning, you usually have an alarm clock, or maybe if you're like my boys, your mom and dad have to come in and wake you up, and those things serve to wake your body on the outside up. But what breakfast does is it's that alarm clock for the inside of your body, and it gets your metabolism moving. So what is our metabolism? Our metabolism is that spark that your body needs to use the energy that you get from your food. So we talked about all of those things in the first segment about our macronutrients and making sure we have our proteins and our fats and our carbohydrates. But if your metabolism isn't moving, then your body can't access those things and your brain can't work. So that's why they say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, because that's what we need to get our brains moving and our bodies learning. So let's go ahead and we're going to start, like we always do, washing our hands. We want to make sure we get on top and in between our fingers and under our fingernails. Our great hand washing technique. And let's get started. So for our first recipe today, what we're going to do is a deconstructed peanut butter and jelly smoothie, which means we're going to take that peanut butter and jelly sandwich apart and we're going to turn it into breakfast. So what we need for this recipe is a blender, our ingredients, and some measuring tools. So we're going to go ahead and talk first about blade safety, because our blender, it has a blade inside. This is what mine looks like. Sometimes they're short, but they're always sharp. So when we pick it up, we want to make sure we're using the part that isn't sharp and we're keeping our other hand away, and you're going to fit it in. And once you have that blade inside, you don't want to put your hands inside, and you don't want to put any spoons or spatulas in there either until we unplug the blender. So we're going to keep that in mind as we cook. So first thing we're going to do, we have our ingredients. You think you're just going to go ahead and dump them in. Seems simple enough. But we have a secret skill today, and our secret skill today is measuring. So when we cook, if we don't have the precise mix of ingredients, it changes the flavor. It's kind of like a chemistry experiment. You don't want to get those quantities wrong because it changes the whole thing. So that's why in cooking and baking, it's always important to measure. And we have two different kinds of measuring tools. We have a measuring cup for liquid ingredients like our milk, and then we have a measuring spoon, which is can be for liquids, but for small amounts of dry food. So we're going to use that for our flaxseed in a little bit. We're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to show you some tips on how to measure in a liquid measuring cup. So we're going to go ahead and we need a cup of milk. So our lines on here, on one side are cups, and in the center are ounces. 1 cup is 8 ounces. Go ahead and pour. And the trick is, when we check to see whether we're at the right spot, we want to make sure to set that cup down and look at it from the side. So the line will line up with the top of our liquid, because if we look up from above, we don't see the same view. So we're going to let the bubbles settle, and we're a little bit below. So we're going to go ahead and add just a little bit more. So that's our cup of milk. We're going to go ahead and pour it in. And our recipe calls for a cup of yogurt. So this is just a single serving of yogurt, vanilla yogurt. We're going to use that Greek yogurt because it has a little bit extra protein. If you want less sugar, because we're going to put all these berries in there, you can probably get away with using just plain yogurt too. And on our container, it tells us how much is in here. So this container is 5.3 ounces, and if you remember, our 1 cup measure was 8 ounces. So we need a cup of yogurt, and this is just a little bit less, but that's going to be okay. Go ahead and scoop that in. And I have a spatula here that just gets all the extra off the edges. You can use a spoon too. And our recipe calls for a 1/2 cup of blueberries and a 1/2 cup of strawberries, which I went ahead and measured out ahead of time. And I'm using frozen berries, so that way they can be in your freezer. You just take them out when you need them, and you don't have to worry about that fresh produce going to waste. And because when they're frozen, our berries are fresh, it holds on to all those nutrients that you have in fresh fruit. So it's pretty much the same thing. So that's our jelly. And what I have here is just a little single serve of peanut butter. So if you have a big jar at home, you're gonna go ahead and use your measuring spoon and you're gonna scoop it out. Now the key for measuring with a measuring spoon, let's pull my knife out. When you put in whatever it is you're measuring, you wanna take that back flat side of your knife and take it across the top to level it out. Ours is already pre-measured, so we're just gonna go ahead and scoop it in. Now, if you have a nut allergy, like peanut allergy or a tree nut allergy, you can go ahead and use sun butter, which is a nice alternative for people with allergies. And it's gonna give you that same kind of nutty flavor. All right, now for our last ingredient today, we're gonna introduce you to something new. Maybe, hopefully. The recipe calls for ground flaxseed. Let me pull it up underneath over here. So this is what our ground flaxseed looks like. It's just a little bit more powdery. I'll go ahead and pour some real ones into my hand that haven't been ground up. So you can get a look at those. They're small and flat, and the outsides are really hard. And the reason why we're going to use ground flaxseed in our recipe instead of the whole flaxseed is because our bodies need to break down the outside hard shell of that flaxseed in order to get all the nutrients, and that's where our energy is. So if we go ahead and we grind it ahead of time, we can make sure that we get the nutrients that we need, which is the whole point of putting them in there. Now the thing about flax seeds is that they also have a superpower. So we're going to talk about flaxseed superpower today. And flaxseed superpower is fiber. So I don't know, you've probably heard that word before, but why do we need fiber? So I'm going to introduce you to one of my friends. I've got him here in the drawer. This is my friend, poop emoji, and this is why fiber is important. So in order to use those nutrients that are in our food, just like we have to grind up the flaxseed, you need to make sure that your nutrients can flow through your body. And that's why pooping is important. If you can't have things flow through, then you can't access the nutrients. And what the fiber does is it keeps your gut healthy and it helps everything flow through. So we've got all our ingredients in there, which means it's time to go ahead and blend everything up. Our first step before we blend is always make sure you put on the lid. This is what keeps it from getting messy. All right, we got a nice click there, and it's about to get really loud, but here we go. All right, so we blended it, that was probably 30, 60 seconds maybe. Go ahead, and when you take that lid off, just flip it over. And what I'm going to do here is unplug our blender. Because we want to go ahead and take that spatula we were using and scrape the edges down. Because sometimes, like right here, our peanut butter got kicked up on the side and it's not mixed all the way in. And we don't want to put our hands in there, but we can go ahead and put the spatula in. And then we'll give it one more quick blend. Let's plug it back in first. deconstructed peanut butter and jelly smoothie. Let's go ahead and we're going to pour it in. Now you want to make sure you hold on to that blade so it doesn't come falling out into your glass. Here we go. And because breakfast is such an important meal of the day, we want to make sure that we get all of our macronutrients in. And we did have our milk and our yogurt, so we've covered our fats and our proteins, and we added our berries, which are actually a carbohydrate. But just to get that extra kick of energy, it's probably a good idea when you have your smoothie to have maybe a frozen waffle or a bagel or a slice of toast. So I have a slice of toast here, and that's our deconstructed peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So for our second recipe today, we're going to do the raisin oatmeal strudel, which is basically just kind of a fancy oatmeal, but it sounds super tasty. Now, if those are flavors that you're not a fan of, you can do this same recipe and switch it up for maybe blueberries and almonds or peanut butter and chocolate chips. So it's different varieties to fit everybody's different taste buds, but for today we're going to work with the oatmeal raisin strudel. So we have here instant oatmeal packs. They're not flavored, they're just plain. We don't need that extra sugar that comes in the fancy schmancy super duper sweet flavors. So we're just gonna go ahead and use instant oatmeal, and we're gonna go ahead and put it in. On the back of the packet, you'll notice that it calls for water. One of the things that we're gonna do to make this breakfast a little more filling and a little bit more healthy is we're gonna swap that water out for milk, and that will bring some protein into our breakfast, and it'll bring some of those fats into our breakfast. And our oatmeal, conveniently, has fiber. So we've got fiber and carbohydrates with our oatmeal. So go ahead. You wanna choose a bowl that's large enough for the oatmeal to boil and expand, and that's what's gonna keep it from overflowing in the oatmeal, in the microwave. We've got our raisins here. And again, you're gonna add to taste. So do you like a lot of raisins? Do you like a lot of cinnamon? And I've taken just a little bit of sugar to sprinkle on top with brown sugar. And your cinnamon probably has a shaker top, mine doesn't, so I'm gonna go ahead and just use my fingers to pinch it on there. And we're gonna go back and we're gonna measure our milk the same way we did before. And we need a half a cup today. Absolutely perfect. Now, before you pop that in the microwave, you wanna go ahead and give it a little bit of a stir. Mix it up nice and good. Here we go. So while that cooks, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what we're going to put on top for our strudel. What I have here is granola, but it's not plain granola. And you can find this at Target. You can find it on Amazon. And sometimes it's called, this is granola with ancient greens and seeds. Sometimes they give it another name. But what you're looking for inside is quinoa. And it's got kind of cool spelling. It's Quinoa. And the reason we want to add that into our granola is because that's a protein. So we talked about add-ons last time for our smoothie. We put in some toast. So today for our oatmeal, we're going to use our granola. And if you look at that real close, you can see inside that there's nuts and seeds, and these little round specks are your quinoa. So there's another new secret ingredient. And we have about 10 seconds left, and then we're going to go ahead and put our granola on top. So you guys can make some room. Now, for those of you who were with us last time, you're going to remember our safety tip is we don't want to reach in here and pull this bowl out. We're going to need to use a pot holder or a towel, or maybe you have a silicone glove. So I'm going to go ahead and use my towel that's here on the counter. And add that granola on top. Stir it in. Have it. Our oatmeal raisin strudel. And we've moved on to our third recipe. Now this is an exciting recipe because we're going to do something new. This is the speedy egg sandwich, but we're going to make our eggs in the microwave. So there's something that you need to know when you cook microwaved eggs. Usually when you start the microwave, it's on 100% power. When you make your eggs, you need to make sure that you use your, and I think on this one it's called power level button. And I'm going to walk through with you how you do that. Each microwave is a little bit different, but what we're looking for is 60% power. We don't want to cook them on high because then they're not going to taste very good. If we cook them on a lower percentage of power for a little bit longer time, they're going to come out really nice and fluffy. So to get started, I've got my nonstick spray and a glass baking dish. You can do this in just a regular bowl, but the smaller the bowl, the shorter the cooking time. So you need to keep that in mind. If you have a real tiny bowl, then you probably want to cut the total time in half. So go ahead and give it a little spray so they don't stick. And our eggs are right here. I'm gonna go ahead and crack them into a separate bowl. And the reason we do that is in case you get a shell. That way you can scoop it out and it doesn't end up in what you're eating. And after you've cracked those eggs into the container, whether it's a bowl, I'm using the measuring cup because I've got it here, you want to give it just a little splash of milk. Not a lot, just a little. And whatever seasoning you're going to use. I like pepper in my eggs. Some people like Cajun seasoning. Some people like Old Bay. So you just go ahead and put a little bit in before you mix it up. And we've got a fork. And you're just going to stir it up until you break the yolk apart and it mixes in with the white part. The faster you go, the creamier it gets. Now we have two options after we pour this into whatever container you're going to use. When we serve this, we can make it as an egg sandwich and use our toast or a bagel. Or if you're not a bread fan, you can take a little handful of spinach and put it in the bottom of a bowl, and then we can pour the eggs on top of the spinach. So I'll show you how to add our toppings, whether you decide to go with the bread, with the spinach, and if you're lucky enough to have a toaster, which we don't have here in this kitchen, you can toast that bread up too. So we've got them in our bowl. Go ahead and put it in the microwave. Now my dish is nice and flat, so I'm going to go ahead and cook it for a minute. We're going to take it and stir it and then put it back in for another minute. If you have a small bowl, you want to do 30 seconds and then we'll pull it out and do another 30 seconds. So we go ahead and we hit cook time, and I put in a minute. And after you put that minute time on, before you press start, normally what you're going to do is hit the power level. And on this microwave it says power level 10, so we hit the number 6. And now it says PL, or power level 6. Sometimes it will say 60s or 60%. And then we can hit our start. And we're almost done. We have about 10 seconds left, so we're gonna get our safety towel, silicone glove, whatever you're gonna use. Now when you pull it out, you also wanna make sure that you don't put it onto a surface that's gonna burn, because your container is gonna be a little bit hot. What you're going to find is that it looks like the egg is cooked near the edges, but not in the middle. So that's why we're going to stir it. We're going to mix that together and put it back in for another minute, or 30 seconds if you're in a small container. So cook time, 1 minute, power level, 6. And then you press start. And we've got 4 seconds left. Now, if you're going to serve this on toast, you probably want to have already put your toast in the toaster. If you have a toaster oven, you can also do that, and then you'd want to lay your cheese on it and get it nice and melty before you start. So it doesn't look like it's quite cooked all the way through. So we're going to give it one more stir and pop it back in for another 15 seconds. So when you pull your eggs out, what you're going to see is they should be a little bit light, like this, and you're going to see a little bit of liquid around them. That's okay, because when eggs cook, after you take them out or take them off the heat, even when they're in a pan, they still keep cooking for a little bit longer. So once you let them sit, we're going to come over here and we're going to work on our toppings. So if you have toast and you've done it in the toaster oven, you may want to put a piece of cheese and let it melt. You have another option. If you're going to use bread or you're going to do it in a spinach bowl, you can just go ahead and sprinkle the cheese, shredded cheese, on your toast. And what I have here are bacon bits. You got little bits of bacon. Just go ahead and sprinkle them on top of your cheese. And you're going to pick up your eggs with your towel or your pot holder. And then you're just going to go ahead and put them on top of your toast. Now, I love ketchup on my eggs. Maybe you like salsa, maybe you like ranch dressing. Doesn't really matter. We're all different. There we go. Flip our sandwich over. There we have it, our speedy egg sandwich. So I want to thank you guys for all coming today, joining me and doing our oatmeal raisin strudel, our speedy egg sandwich, and our deconstructed peanut butter and jelly smoothie. And we have our showcase of champions.